And then everything else will just be as is.
Do you need a motion to change the agenda? Do you need a motion to change an agenda?
Well, I need a motion to approve the agenda with a change of moving this up to the first
Under
item of communications.
Okay.
Where are we today?
Good evening. I will call to order a Wilsonville City Council meeting for April 15, 2019 at 7:05 and request a roll call, please.
Counselor West?
Here.
Counselor Stevens?
Here.
Council President Ackerval? Here. Counselor Lehan?
Here.
Mayor Knapp?
Here. Would the audience please rise and join us in a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please, the council, I'm open to a motion on order of agenda with one small adjustment so that we can, is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the order of agenda with one slight change, moving the Wilsonville basketball proclamation under the communications category.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we follow the agenda with that one small change. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. So that means that we get to celebrate the Wildcats boys basketball achievement here as the first thing. I want to do a couple of things. I would like to, first of all, recognize the coach, Chris Roach, somewhere where off the side there he is. And I would like to name the members of the boys varsity team. Gabe Reichel, Zachary Rivers, Jack Roach, Finley Dunn, Dakota Reber, Kason Dougal, Grant Irby, Andrew Clausen, Sam Westing, Keegan Shivers, Riley Scanlon, Nolan TB, Osvi Vulasco, if that's close, and Logan Thebe. So thank you all for your exciting season and for all of your achievements. I have a proclamation which I would like to read, and we then have individual certificates I would like to hand you out to each of you on behalf of the council and recognition of your achievement. But let me start, I guess, by reading this proclamation. Wilsonville Wildcats Week, April 15th to 21, 2019. Whereas Wilsonville residents honor the faculty and administration of the Wilsonville High School for their commitment to providing a well-rounded education that includes extracurricular activities that develop life skills. And whereas the Wilsonville Wildcats boys varsity basketball team is representative of the high school's commitment to sportsmanship, overall excellence, and the development of leaders. And whereas these Wildcats displayed outstanding academic achievement by placing first in the state among 5A boys basketball programs with an average GPA of 3.71. And whereas the 2018-19 Wildcats finished the season as Northwest Oregon Conference champions for the 5th consecutive year with a conference record of 14-0 and an overall record of 27-2. And whereas on Saturday, March 9th, 2019, the Wilsonville High School boys varsity basketball team, under the tutelage of head coach Chris Roach, earned the title of state champions for the 3rd time in 4 years. And whereas with the senior leadership of Grant Irby, Zachary Rivers, Jack Roach, Nolan Tebe, Sam Westing, the Wildcats became the first boys team from the state of Oregon in any classification to appear in 5 straight state championship games. And whereas Wildcat senior Jack Roche was named Northwest Oregon Conference Player of the Year, joining teammates Dakota Reber and Keegan Shivers in earning first team all-conference honors. Gabe Reichel earned second team all-conference. Zach Rivers earned honorable mention all-conference. Chris Roach was selected as conference coach of the year. Whereas the 2018 and 19 team led all 5A schools in scoring with 72 points per game and ended the season with 54 straight conference wins and a 20-game winning streak. And whereas this Wildcats boys varsity basketball team displayed consistent excellence and exemplary sportsmanship. They finished the year with an unblemished 24-0 record against in-state competition. Their success on the court and in the classroom generated positive attention, excitement, and community pride while serving as an example and inspiration to the entire Wilsonville community. Now, therefore, the Wilsonville City Council proclaims April 15th through 21st, 2019 as Wilsonville Wildcats Week, and the Wilsonville City Council commends the passion, enthusiastic support, and sportsmanship demonstrated by Wilsonville High School students, parents, and community members, and we congratulate the members of the 2018-2019 Wildcats boys varsity basketball team for winning this state championship. So, congratulations. So, Mr. Cosgrove, I think that there's maybe another couple of recognitions that we should cover, and I don't have those right in front of me.
So, yes, Mayor, thank you for asking. If you could look at the back of the room, because we could not get these into the proclamation because when press time came, all the accolades were laid out in front of us, but there's some additional ones that came in after press time, which is that we had two Wilsonville boys that were named 5A co-players of the year, and I think it was the coach's son, if I'm not mistaken, Jack Roach, and I believe, I'm not sure the other one, I don't have it in front of me. Dakota Reber, thank you. And then Chris Roach was also honored as the 5A Coach of the Year. So that's some additional things that came in after press time.
Great, very nice. I want to hand out individual certificates to the team members, but before I jump to that, I would like to also acknowledge that the girls team had a pretty memorable year also, coached by Justin Duke, who I think is here. Justin, would you be able to come forward to one of these mics and give us the names of your team and maybe recognize those that are here and then others, just so that we have that publicly? Yes.
And Coach, if you have any, if there were any of your team members that were selected for All-State or for All-League, you might want to mention that as well, because this will all end up in the Boones Ferry Messenger as well.
Okay. So we're joined here by Kayla Heeb, Sydney Guttridge, Amelia Bishop, Tegan McNamee, and Reese Tim. Among some others, we had 5 girls selected to the All-League team. Sydney Guttridge was second team. Tegan McNamee was honorable mention. Hannah McKinney was honorable mention. Sydney Burns and Amelia Bishop were first team All-League selections. We had Sydney Burns and Amelia Bishop were selected to the second team All-State team. And we finished with a record of 23-6, second most wins in school history, and finished third in the state.
Excellent, absolutely excellent. And we look forward, We look forward to hopefully seeing them in first place next year. So we'll see how that goes too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We want to hand out these, I guess.
Yeah, I think if we come over here, Mayor, if the rest of council want to join you, you could.
Yeah, we could do a
have the
receiving
boys
line.
team come up and we could hand out their certificates and take some pictures, and then have the girls team come up. And then we can have the boys leave and then have them all join together in the dais and do a semicircle here, and we'll get one big picture after.
All right, sounds good.
It's all people in back.
So are we going to hand these out first?
I think if you want to just hand them out, Mayor, maybe shake a hand, and then they can line up for a picture.
I'd like to know who you are, so I'm going to go in the order I have, but not the order in. Gabe Reichel? Zach Rivers?
I'm accepting on behalf of Zach Rivers.
Jack Roach? Finley Dunn? Dakota Reaver? Jason Dougal? Grant Irby? Andrew Clausen? Sam Westing? Keegan Shivers? Riley Scanlon? Nolan Tebey? Ozzy Velasco? And Logan Tebey. Congratulations. Okay, how about we do a picture
Yeah, so-
now, if we can.
All guys in back, which is most of you.
Including the mayor.
Guards and councilors in front, mayors and former.
I like your bow tie. That's awesome.
Together.
We're all gonna get it. All right. Everyone's welcome to take your picture, but you're required to look at me for at least the first three. All right, one. Whoops, I just turned the camera off. It's figuring out how to work this. 1, 2, 3. I can see all the faces. That's good. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now they can all fight for your attention.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere.
Don't leave. Well, you can exit the horseshoe, but you're gonna come right back in after we get the girls.
Why don't you do the group picture first, and then they can send the boys.
That makes sense, actually. That's why you're in PR and I'm
All
not.
right.
Now, sit here and ask the ladies to come up if we could. Right back now. Come on in the front.
Your only challenge is I still have to see everyone's face. Oh, this is good. This is good. You've done this before. No. Not your first team photo. All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Who blinked? 1, 2, 3. All right.
I'll get the girls.
Now the boys can leave and the girls can stay with the council.
Gals here for a minute.
Congrats. Good job.
Let's do maybe. Actually, if you can go to the side of them, and we can all just probably do one row. Yeah, I can get it all in one row. There. All right, that's perfect. Now just squeeze in a half a step toward each other. There you go. All right. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we're gonna hand you uniforms, and you can play a little 5-on-5. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congrats, ladies. Great year.
Did we do that for the football team?
No. We only do it for first place.
Kind of rules? And third?
Don't ask.
Okay. You're like,
You can ask, just not tonight.
later.
You guys are together.
I got you.
There should be one more up here.
There.
And that's for handout, that one.
that's public hearing.
Okay, that's nice. Always fun to be able to do that. We have on communications a couple of formal presentations, I guess I would say. I think we'll start with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, Chief Dyke and Chief Weiss. If you would, please come forward here. And I think that this is in the nature of a regular annual report, but due to some extraordinary events, you might have more than that to say tonight. Welcome.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Knapp, councilors. My name is Derek Weiss with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. I was actually here tonight to support the basketball teams, but since we're here, we figured we'd make a little presentation for you. A lot's been going on, of course, in the city of Wilsonville, but also a lot throughout our service area. This year, we found that our fire chief, Chief Mike Dyke, who's with me tonight, is retiring June 30th of this year. Along with the chief, our CFO, who's been with us for 30 years, is retiring as well. Recently, we ended the process for finding a new CFO for the organization. We successfully did so. They will come on board mid of May, so they get an overlap with our current CFO, which is good for continuity of performance in our budget process. As you may know, we found the fire chief's replacement at the first of the year. I was fortunate enough to get that position, so July 1st of this year, I'm excited to say that I will take over for what the chief has done up to this point over the last 10 years, and I'm excited for the future of the organization. Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, right now, we find ourselves in a time of succession. They're not only the fire chief and the chief financial officer, but we have 45 people that are eligible to retire right now. And if you think about this year, there'll be another 20, and the year after that, another 20, and the year after that, another 20. There's 100 or so firefighters and other support staff that is eligible to retire this year. So we have a keen eye on what the future looks like and how we hire and bring new people on board, which we continue to do. This year also sees a slight change in our organizational structure. So with the fire chief leaving and a division chief leaving and a CFO leaving, it gave an opportunity to evaluate what our organizational structure looked like. And we were divided, at one point we were divided into a north, central, and south division for Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue to interact with our cities and the other public agencies that we serve alongside. And then we went down to two. So we had a north, if you will, and a south operating center that managed those roles. This year, come July 1st, the reorganization will actually eliminate both north and south operation centers, and we will have what we're calling a government affairs division that we're going to bring forward. So rather than a division chief and a PAO and a few others that interact with the cities and the public partners that we have, we're going to have an entire division that does that. As the organization grows, we want to focus and continue our focus on the cities that we serve. We have 11 cities and 4 counties. And so we believe that this structure is actually going to better position us to serve our partners in those communities. I could tell you a lot about what the fire chief has done over the past 10 years, and he didn't want me to. But I feel like I have to share at least one thing that the fire chief has done, not only for this community, but the entire organization. And mind you, this is just one small thing in Chief Dyke's career. But now in any community that we serve over our jurisdiction, you can pull up an app on your phone called PulsePoint. And some people are familiar with that app. A lot of people really aren't. Sorry, you're familiar with it too? Yeah. But I'm surprised at how many people aren't. PulsePoint, we didn't originate PulsePoint. We didn't create the app. It came from California, I believe. But Chief Dyke was the one that brought PulsePoint to this state. And now other agencies throughout the state are using this, where you can be notified when there's an event in your area or near you even. We extended that to where off-duty firefighters can be tapped, if you will, on their PulsePoint application that tells them when there's a cardiac arrest in their area, and they can respond to that off-duty and provide care. It's bigger than you might think. But I want to share just one thing that the chief has done in his 10 years here. I am very nervous to follow in his footsteps. He's a rather tall man with big shoes to fill, but I think the agency has the right people, good people, to help guide us moving forward. So we're excited about that. Chief, I will give it to you if you had some words to say.
Yeah, you never listen to what I say.
No,
so.
I did violate that.
Well, Mayor, members of the council, Mike Dyke, your fire chief, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. As Chief Weiss said, the board of directors, upon my conversation with them last year, saying I'd like to retire as of July 1st of this year, started an exhaustive process, and through that whole process, thoroughly vetted all the candidates, and in the end, selected Chief Weiss to be the next fire chief for 12 Valley Fire and Rescue and your fire chief. I will tell you, myself and the board of directors are very excited because Chief Weiss has already, I think, proven just his abilities. He's a great leader. He's got a very good vision. The reorganization and some of the changes that he's already moved into motion, I think are sound, and I have no doubt that you will be very proud of the work that he will do in the future for you. I want to take an opportunity to come tonight and to thank you, the mayor, council, city manager, and staff for being such a great partner for me. It has truly been an honor to be your fire chief for nearly 10 years. And even going beyond that, my time with TVF&R actually started the same month TVF&R was formed in 1989. So it's been truly an opportunity, a great opportunity for me and an honor to serve this community and all of our communities in the capacity that I have. I've enjoyed coming to work every single day. And although some days weren't as good as far as the outcomes and types of incidents that we responded to, in the end, I think we did a lot of good. And as an organization and with partners like you, we will continue to do great work in the community. But I didn't want to leave before I had an opportunity to at least come in front of you and say thank you for being such a great partner. I will tell you, I have a lot of peers in the fire service all over the country and the world, and not many of them are able to tell stories and cite instances where they have great partnerships with local governments and work so closely with the cities that they're serving as we do. So I appreciate all that, and I appreciate the time tonight to talk to you.
So in the coming months, we'll notify you of some events that are going to take place, some retirement events. You'll get that information. So if you want to attend, you will be able to do so. With that, if you have any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I just would like to comment that the collaboration that we have had from TVF&R under Chief Dyke has been just astounding and so beneficial to the community. He may not have told you, Chief Weiss, but one of his primary duties has been to be a member of our Urban Renewal Strategy Task Force for over an extended period of time and talk about what is responsible use of that tool and appropriate outcomes to try to achieve. And I very much personally appreciate the authoritative voice that he has brought to those discussions about what is accurate and what benefits are and what potential pitfalls there are and how we can best, collaborate on what is sometimes a contentious issue. And so I'm hopeful, Chief Weiss, that you will find your way to continuing in a similar role, as sort of the interface between your department and our city here. It is very evident how our community benefits from the work that your department does, not just for the recent catastrophic event that we had in the city, but in an ongoing mode as we work to find ways forward. The collaboration on the Villebois sprinklering is one example that is a kind of groundbreaking kind of a mode for a city to collaborate with fire on, and I think that it has proven to be very helpful and desirable and maybe will be expanded. So I remember a few years back when we lost a couple of kids in an apartment fire, and our city building official, Mr. Brown, worked diligently to see that state codes were changed to require sprinklers in those multifamily apartments. So we've had, a fair amount of involvement over the years, and I think it's all yielded better results than might have happened absent really dedicated people on both sides. So I want to thank you for that work that you've done too.
Thank you.
Council, any questions you'd like to ask or comments? Thank you, gentlemen. We'll look forward to continuing our association.
Thank you. If I could just
Yes.
because I might not see him until his retirement party. I just want to say I appreciate the level of communication, professionalism, and cooperation with your agency. It's a blessing to work with somebody who's easy to work with and who communicates at a high level. And I think that emanates from the top. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we have another formal communication that I've been trying to get on our agenda for a period of time because I think that it is not recognized with the level of significance that it actually achieves, and that is our Dolly Parton Imagination Library collaboration and the work that it does. So I want to welcome Pat Duke and Hilly, and I'm sorry, I don't know.
Jan Rippey.
Jan Rippey on this presentation to help us understand what this program is, how it has grown over time, and what effect you folks think it has in our community. Welcome.
Mayor Knapp, Council, good evening. I'm Pat Duke, the Library Director. With me is Jan Rippey and Hilly Alexander, who are members of the foundation, Wilsonville Public Library Foundation, as well as the director of the Wilsonville Public with the Dolly Parton's Imagination Library program. And so they are here to talk about the program and to talk about where we're going and what we've done thus far. So Hilly or Jan, you're first?
I'll go first. And Hilly, are you in charge of the slide
Yes.
changing? Okay, great. Good evening. Thank you for having us. Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is a book gifting program that was started by the famous entertainer Dolly Parton a little over 20 years ago, and it has spread across the nation. There are about 1,400 affiliates of this program in the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and we've just recently added Ireland. So, Hilly, if you'll go ahead. Imagination Library provides to children who are under age 5 from 0 until the month of their 5th birthday, a free, high-quality, age-appropriate book which is mailed directly to the child's home at no cost to the family. Dolly Parton makes this possible through her Dollywood Foundation, and she works closely with Penguin Books, the publishing company, to make this affordable to any community that wants to have one. So Wilsonville is one of those communities. About 7 years ago, I started working with the Kiwanis Club to get this started, and we have grown. So go ahead. So Dolly Parton started this out because it was kind of a nice thing to do. She started it out for her home county of Sevier County, Tennessee, and it just replicated. More and more people wanted to do this, get these books to children. The books for babies are board books. They're selected by a highly esteemed panel of educators, school psychologists, librarians. So the books are really carefully selected. They're great books that kids love, parents love, teachers love, all good stuff. But it turns out that now that this has been going on for over 20 years, in some of the localities that have had it for many years, they've started doing some research, and the research is showing amazing things because the children who have been enrolled in Dolly Parton's Imagination Library for at least 4 to 6 months actually have higher third grade standardized test scores. These children, just simply by receiving the books and handling them, have more pre-reading skills in place when they enter kindergarten. Kindergarten teachers can tell which kids have had these books. The children are have a richer language, vocabulary, and they are just really set up for success in school for years to come. Some evidence is pointing toward, there's a study in South Carolina that's almost ready to be published, but I can't officially say it's official yet, but it's showing that children who have had these books as toddlers actually graduate from high school at a higher rate than those who have not. So anyone who lives in Wilsonville can enroll. We also include that sliver of Tualatin and that serves Beckman Creek Primary School. So any child who would be entering school in Wilsonville is eligible to enroll. So we have lots more exciting stuff to tell you, but Hilly can go from here.
All right, thank you, Jan, for the segue. Again, I'm Hilly Alexander. I'm on the Library Foundation Board, and I'm co-chair with Jan on the Wilsonville Imagination Library. Westland just started a program, and so now we actually serve the entire Westland-Wilsonville School District. So any child under 5 in the school district can enroll. For us, that means we serve zip code 97070, and as Jan mentioned, just small parts of 97062. That means that there are 1,800 children under 5 that are eligible to enroll. Unfortunately, we currently are only serving 44%, which is really not good enough for us. So the challenge for us is to enroll children, obviously. We also need to raise money. But what I want to talk about tonight is the challenge to reach the children who are eligible. We reach them at our library, but what about all of those who never come to the library? So we do outreach, and we appreciate the city's help with that. Parks and Recs, for example, lets us have a booth at events. We'll be at the Egg Hunt. We've been at the Harvest Festival, and that's always great to get the word out. We've also had occasional articles in the Boones Ferry Messenger, and we have had information on the smart buses. So all of that helps us. But obviously, there's more that we would love to do. I want to share with you what we've done in the 7 years that the program has been in place here. We have now mailed more than 53,000 books in this town. It's an awfully big number, but as you can see on the graph, our numbers have flattened out. So we would love to have every family participate. And I wanted to share with you just a few words from a Facebook post that a local mom put up just a few days ago, and this is only a part of it. Marie says, "My little one gets a new age-appropriate book every month, and he looks forward to it." Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is such a cool program. I'd hate for anyone to miss out. And this is where I'm hoping you will help us. So tonight, I respectfully ask you, Mayor and councilors, to please help us spread the word. If you have any ideas on how we could do that, and again, it's primarily for the part of the population that is not connected to the library, where they hear about the program all the time. So do you have any questions for us?
Council, questions? Councilor Lehan?
So what age does it start?
At birth.
At birth? Oh,
At
okay.
birth. If a baby is signed up at birth, by the time they turn 5, they will have 60 books in their home library.
And the research shows that those children have a brighter future.
Yes. So I noticed the sample books we have here are bilingual. Are they all bilingual? And
No, they are not.
Okay.
But there has been an increase in bilingual books, and we're really, really happy for that. There are bilingual baby books, board
Yeah,
books,
that's what I
and
have right
they
here.
go all the way up to the 4-year-old books.
so then it would be interesting to see in the studies whether they're a native Spanish speaker or a native English speaker, whether going into grade school, they are better, they're picking up the other language. And their parents, for that matter, because I had Spanish and I don't remember some of these. So, so I mean, it seems like that's another avenue for research, data, to see how it impacts language if they're getting books like this, vocabulary books that are in 2 languages. It should be interesting.
I can talk for an hour about the research, but I'll just please contact me afterwards. and
Okay.
I can talk to you all kinds of things, yeah.
Councilor Akkerval?
I just wanted to express my appreciation too for your involvement and support of this program. Our family got to be a recipient of books for my daughter when she was growing up, and she's 8 now. So I'm thinking, 2011 she was born. We were probably there right kind of at the beginning, maybe when this started in Wilsonville, and it was a fantastic program for her. I mean, for her to get mail with her name on it, there's the excitement, and then you associate that excitement with books and with reading, and this is my book. How powerful is that too? It's a really cool thing. The other thing that our family discovered while having this too is it introduced different types of literature and books into our house that I might not have picked out myself at the library. And you don't realize how much you're steering your kid into, exploring one topic or another until maybe there's some new opportunities presented, in front of you. And, oh, she likes baseball. I know nothing about baseball, so that's a really cool another aspect of it. There's just so many layers to this program, so many benefits. I was also curious, the example book that I have here is also in Spanish. And so if families are wanting to sign up for the Spanish books, how are they able to indicate that? And are you finding also in Westland Wilsonville, we have the dual language program, and so there are many people that speak Spanish as their first language in the home, or that there's also some families that just want to incorporate it into their learning for their child and maybe speak English as a first language, but would like to have Spanish opportunities for their kids as they grow up. How does all of this play out?
So first of all, just to explain a little more clearly, the books, since they're age appropriate, there's a selection of books for children who are, babies, 0 to 1 year old. And within that group, within the year that the child is 0 years old, they will receive 2 titles that year, just automatically by virtue of being a member of Imagination Library. And so every child receives 2 per age group per year. So when they're 2, there will be 2 titles that they receive that year that are dual language.
Okay, so everybody
everybody
is
gets
this.
them. And
That's
anecdotally,
fantastic.
just you might be interested, they've only been doing this for a little under 2 years now, and it's exciting. The feedback that I'm hearing from the parents is mostly from the English-speaking parents who are thrilled to be learning the Spanish. But we do need to help to reach out to the Spanish-speaking families a little more. So if you have any contacts with them, that'd be great too.
Okay, thank you.
If I may add to that, so the only criteria we look at as a Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is the age of the child. Really, that's it.
And do they live here?
Thank
Right,
you.
and that they live in our service area, right?
Yeah.
Councilor West?
Well, you had me at Dolly Parton. We're big fans in our household, and we're also big fans of literature and reading. I got today the Minosaur, the Minosaur book. I don't know if you guys knew, but as a little boy, dinosaurs are about the coolest thing on the planet to me. Right next to Transformers, He-Man, and the GoBots. So I appreciate that. I am always, especially opportunities like this are great for kids that are a little bit more of a vulnerable population, and making sure that they get access to quality literature, reading, and exposure to that is fantastic. What happens if a child moves out of district, moves away is one of my questions. Is there any specific outreach to foster children in the district? And then my other question is can this go statewide, and has it ever gone statewide anywhere?
Okay, lots of.
Go for it.
Okay, starting out, if a child moves, this is what's really cool about how this is spreading across our country and our state right now. If a child moves from one community, like Wilsonville, that has Dolly Parton's Imagination Library in place, and they move to another one, like I'll say Eugene, which has a program going, it's just a click of a button in the database, and they get transferred straight over, and they don't miss a beat. They get the next book the next month at their new home in Eugene. If a child moves from here to Joseph in Wallowa County, there is not a program in Joseph, and they would then unfortunately be dropped. The good news is you can always start a new one, and we're always helping. Pat especially, and has been reaching out, and I've been with him on that, and it's spreading around our state. There, on the website that the Dollywood Foundation provides, there's one section of that website that gives the listing of all the books that will be mailed over the next year, and it's a great resource for parents who live in an area in which there is no Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, and they can either order from Amazon or go to their local bookstore or their library, whatever they've got. So that's how that works. It's really cool when a child moves from someplace in Texas to here in Wilsonville, and they just are moving right across, and they never miss a book. It's pretty cool. As far as statewide, there is an effort. There's a bill before the legislature right now.
Do you know the bill number?
It's House Bill 2247A. It's being considered to be part of the Student Success Committee, the bipartisan council on that group on that. What this proposes is when Pat and I traveled around the state a couple of years ago with the Dollywood Foundation regional director who oversees the western half of the U.S., we were introducing Imagination Library because we saw that for the small amount of money that we invest here in Wilsonville, which is, yes, we're always trying to raise money, but it's not that hard because so many people get what it means to raise money for books for kids, and they understand the importance of that. So there is a private foundation that was offering to pay 50% for the rural counties in Oregon that would get this started, because so many of those children have lots less access than our kids right here. So we helped that, but helped that get started in about 23 counties. There are more, and that's part of the reason Pat was recognized as Librarian of the Year last year. But the word has now spread because there are many more affiliates in Oregon. At first there were like 5 of us, and now Wilsonville has set an example, thanks to all of you who are part of our great city, and the Library Foundation and the Kiwanis Club. So word's out around the state, and it's just blossoming. But there are some places that didn't get that 50% offer from that family foundation. And so the bill is proposing that the areas that are more urban, the Willamette Valley areas, I think there are 12 counties that don't have the offer. The bill proposes a 50% payment, because we do have a monthly bill, to those places that don't currently get any help like that. And so the idea is that would be the baby step, and then once people get the books, they never want to stop. And there's going to be a way to find the funding, because when you have a will to make this happen in your community, you can make it happen. Dolly Parton makes it so easy and so affordable. And the children in the schools, the test scores go up, the kindergarten teachers love it, the kids come in all more prepared, and there's nothing bad about it. So did that answer your question?
And foster kids, do you have an outreach to foster children by any, like a little bit more of a vulnerable population?
The only thing I can say is that not necessarily. It depends on where they live. And so if they live in a community in which this is offered. However, I am a member of Community of Hope Church, which sponsors a camp for foster children in Clackamas County. Some of the ones who need the children who wouldn't be able to go to camp otherwise. And so we have given a couple of times some of the books that are returned to us and undeliverable to the kids that church works with.
Fantastic.
And so they see those kids about 3 times a year, but the intense work is during summer. But there's not a push just for foster kids. Every kid is important.
Well, I saw you guys at the Capitol, and when I was down there advocating for foster kids, and you guys had Dolly cut up there and the books out, and a lot of buzz around your table down in the Capitol, and it's fantastic. And I really appreciate your work to invest in our future, our kids, and doing it through literature. I think is absolutely fantastic, and I support you 100%. And I hope there's luck with the bill, and let me know if there's any way I can help.
Oh, thank you.
Well, the bill has been voted out of committee, so now we're just waiting.
Perfect. Yep.
So
Counselor.
the last thing I would say is that we really do need help we need to do some more outreach to reach the kids who aren't signing up, because it really makes a difference in their life. And so that's what we could really use right now.
Counselor Stevens?
Thanks. That ties in with my question very well. So there's a 6-month-old that was just born on my street. And so what do I tell their parents? Okay.
You have one of those brochures in your book. The sign-up form is right in there.
Okay.
They can either fill that out and drop it off at the library, or they can sign up online.
Perfect.
The email address is right there, imaginationlibrary.com.
Okay. And where can I get more of these? At the library, I assume?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, because I see lots of strollers when I walk and run in the neighborhoods, and it would just be, I mean, if you're looking for help.
Of brochures, I'd be happy to give
Okay, that'd be great. Fantastic, Hilly. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And one of our foundation members just reminded me that this is an example of how the books are mailed to the children. They come in shrink wrap, and
great.
then they have a label with the child's name on it, and the kids get so excited about seeing their own name. And the names are kept really, Dolly Parton is a stickler for privacy. We do not sell or use their names for anything else. Did you ever? No, it's complete, it's annoyingly secure to us. So, especially parents who might be nervous about sharing their information, that's something that can make them more comfortable about signing up.
I will let them know that too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Cosgrove?
I was just curious that you said you only have 44% market penetration. That seems like a significant number. Do you know how that compares to other communities?
Well, when we first started the program here, our goal was to enroll 100% of the children. Well, we heard right away from the regional manager from Dolly Parton's organization that they consider 60% full enrollment. That's never been good enough for us. We were actually right around 60%, but the problem is, well, not really a problem. Wilsonville is growing, families move in, people have kids, so it's a moving target for us. And but it's a good challenge to have. So for us, 44% is just not good enough.
Okay, so in terms of budget, if you had a 10% increase, what is your cost?
Okay, our cost last year, just for the books and the mailing, was just under $20,000.
The foundation's cost?
Foundation's cost, yes. We, all of this is paid for from private funds. We have donors and the foundation. We have some organizations that chip in. If you'd like to figure out what it would
I'm only
mean.
asking because I saw that you have contribution
Yes.
slips in here, so I was trying to
Yes.
help you build the case.
So here is the number that I tell people. This is an incredibly efficient program. It costs us $25 per child per year. That means 12 books mailed to a child. So I can ask anybody if they can spare $25, and they support a child for an entire year.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So if you
So,
have,
so the more is better.
How much of your budget is that 20,000 for the foundation?
I just figured that out this week. 94%, we have to put some money toward brochures, and every year we have a little thank you, and we have some postage and some newsletters, but it's all volunteer. We have no overhead. Our home is at the library, so, you know, every book is so inexpensive that, guess what? These brochures cost us 41 cents each. Well, a book only costs us $2.10. So this is like, this is like a quarter of a book. So it's a pretty great deal that Dolly Parton makes for us.
And then lastly, Mayor, I just want to acknowledge the work that Hilly and Jan do in the community through the library. And you will be honoring our volunteers tomorrow night, and I'm hoping that you will both be there. We have other volunteers that are doing great work in the community. It just makes Wilsonville such a special and strong place because of folks like you. So thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to us. We took up a lot of your time, but you can tell we really love to talk about it.
So in terms of outreach, I keep thinking about, is there an outreach program to preschools in the community?
Yes, there is. We actually get a lot of help from our library staff. They regularly visit primary schools, but they also visit preschools. So they help us with that, and we have volunteers who we're trying to, gear up again to visit.
Yeah, and then our church community, you've got a lot of families that go to our churches that, may not necessarily be library patrons on a regular basis.
We need to penetrate that market more.
Okay,
Thank you. Great suggestions.
We
All
have
right.
other ideas too.
sounds good. Thank you for all the work you're doing. I think it's just marvelous. And, when you hear that 50,000 books have been put out in our own community, I think it's just phenomenal.
So
Thank you.
keep these, is that what you're saying?
Keep them.
You may keep them, yes.
Can I donate this to
You
your
might
neighbor?
find,
Because my kids are well past the stage of kids' books.
you might find somebody who just got born in your area, and you can give that to them and get them started.
Sounds good.
But please don't throw them away. If you really don't want them, thank you.
Going to a
Okay.
good home.
That's $2.10.
Okay, so like I said, I think that it's a program that we need to be aware of and talking about. I think it's got both short-term and long-term benefit that we need to promote in our community, and it's so gratifying that we've got people that are making this happen in our community. So that brings us to what? Citizens input and community announcements, which is an opportunity for visitors to address the council on things that are not on the agenda. Also a time to address things that are on the agenda but not scheduled for formal public hearing. Staff and council will make every effort to respond to specific questions raised during this portion, either before tonight's meeting ends or as soon as we can thereafter. We do ask you keep your comments to just 3 minutes. I have several speaker cards. I have one pertaining to ordinance number 835, which is scheduled for a public hearing, so I will hold that until we get to that particular item. Let's see, I have 2 people that would like to speak together, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce Fariba and Ellie Fungai. Please. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Fariba Fouroughi. I am a resident of Villebois community in Wilsonville, and I'm here with another fellow resident who happened to be my sister. We're here to kind of voice some concern that we have had. In fact, there's been a growing concern amongst the residents at Villebois with regards to the new developments that are supposed to be taking place within the community center, right at the center of the Villebois. I think the issues that we're mostly concerned about are the fact that the planners are aiming to build 143 new apartments and retail spaces with 70% as studio units, and with very little adequate parking space. And the idea being that the required parking, the cars will have to move into the neighboring streets and find parking. Well, these streets at Villebois are already filled to capacity, and any additional parking is going to really put huge pressure on the current residents. Also, the other concerns for us is that the condensed sort of living conditions that is going to be created is going to be attracting more traffic into the area. And the greater the traffic, the greater the risk of safety to the children present in the community. Further concerns are regarding the level of crime that would be associated with any such densely populated area. So we felt that we would like to have the opportunity to raise our concern to the council and request that these will be taken into consideration by the planners and the council.
Have you had a chance to sit down and meet with the city planning department and look at the overall Villebois concept and how it's been worked on over the last 12 or 14 years?
Personally, I have had some opportunity of hearing some of the development and the history of the Villebois, just purely because I've been participating in the Citizen Academy. But the rest of the residents that we've been in contact with have not had that opportunity. I believe that any kind of knowledge, information, and understanding of the area is helpful. But also, I think these are real concerns of the residents. And we would like to be able to make sure we have a say in what is happening.
Mr. Cosgrove, do you think that there would be an opportunity where concerned residents might sit down with people that have some good perspective and factual information that could be brought forward? Or?
Yeah, I've received a few emails since I've got back, and I'm encouraging people to reach out to the planning department and sharing what information I can. The two issues that come up are what's going to happen with the apartment building that burnt down, and so I can factually speak to that in terms of what their land use entitlements are and what I know about their intentions. I think this specific issue is one that's come to council in terms of just a presentation to you, which I think is the vertical housing one. That would be obviously a land use issue that anybody within a certain number of feet would be able to testify to the DRB on. So that would come back to a decision-making body where people would get notice and would be able to comment on that.
I was thinking about something, less formal to start with, that people might ask questions of planners that, had the full knowledge about the whole project.
Yes, I am asking, I'm requesting that people contact the planning department, specifically Chris Namsu, because he has a long history with the vision and the plan.
He's not with us tonight, I don't think so.
Out there right now, he could be in his office watching on TV. Yeah. So yes, I am, where I individually get these requests, I'm turning people over to the planning department, but we haven't, other than that, it's just been kind of contact from individuals.
Maybe staff could reach these ladies and they might bring a few friends along or something and have a little bit of a discussion about.
I'm happy to organize a briefing for an HOA, if that's something you'd be interested, maybe do like a mini presentation in front of a group of residents.
Definitely, I think that would be a great idea. I can communicate this with the neighbors that we've been in contact with and see if we can set up a mutually convenient evening.
We could do it here, we could do it at Via Watch, or I think
Right.
you guys have a facility there as well, so happy to coordinate with you.
Right. So who would I make contact with? Who would be
Chris
the-
Namsu in the planning department, or you could get that guy, his name is Bill Evans, back there.
Yeah, he can.
Get his contact information, and we'll coordinate through the Public Affairs office. And then I think you mentioned something about parking. Obviously, it's just a discussion topic at this time, but if there is an application that comes forward, they will be held to the same standards of any multifamily apartment would be in terms of parking standards. They have to meet all the code requirements, and that would be addressed at the time of a land use application.
So all the issues, we have to talk with the planning committee.
Yes.
About the issues. I
Well-
recently moved about 6 weeks ago to Willowbois, and I live near the town center.
Mhm.
And I really notice the traffic in that neighborhood quite a bit. And if they're building 4 or 5-story buildings in that neighborhood, I can't imagine, without any underground parking or any consideration for parking, I can't imagine what the traffic congestion would be then.
Well, I think it's probably a conversation we could have with
Yeah.
you, and our planners know a lot more about our code than I can share with you tonight.
Right.
I would recommend you set that up. We could probably answer most of your questions.
Thank you.
In terms of the parking, there are standards that any multifamily development would have to meet. So they would have to have on-site parking for however many units they have. And the retail that would be planned for that would mostly serve a local area. It wouldn't be necessarily a draw from people outside the neighborhood. It'd mostly be walk up, like a restaurant or a coffee shop or something like that. No large-scale retail is planned for that site.
But
Small
a
spaces.
lot of cars parked there to get into the shops.
Sure.
They just leave their cars there. And, I see it because I live in that neighborhood.
Happy to have that meeting with you folks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And I have a speaker card from Colleen Hampson. Good evening.
If you could follow along on the handouts that I sent out, and I don't think there were enough. I'm sorry about that. You could look together on a couple, do you have them there? We're going, okay. If you could follow along, the handouts are the research studies that I refer to. The harm that glyphosate-based formulas, such as those found in Roundup, are doing to the environment and to humans is no longer anecdotal. It is factual. Exposure to these herbicides, even in what is considered safe amounts, is proving to be toxic. Although glyphosate formulas are legal across the U.S., globally they are being banned at a rapid pace. Could you show them that really quickly? Okay, so parks, city landscape, and communal areas are sprayed several times a year. Studies show that the herbicide spray drift has been found to go as far as 2 miles, with the highest concentration being at least a mile away. According to MIT researchers, glyphosate is most probably a pathway to modern diseases, such as autism, MS, IBD, and cancer. I have 2 children who were diagnosed within a year of each other with IBD, life-threatening on both parts, and I have a granddaughter with nonverbal autism. We could say that the rise in these diseases, of course we could say, it could be from a myriad of reasons. However, if you look at the USDA graphs that I've shared with you, the correlation between glyphosate introduction in the 1990s and the rise in disease is astounding, if you just look at the graphs I shared with you. A gardener from California, diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, was just awarded $289 million in a lawsuit against Monsanto, the maker of glyphosate, for intentionally concealing the health risks of its Roundup products. And there are many other lawsuits on the dockets. According to studies, glyphosate is also destructive to soil microbiome. And it depletes the minerals within the soil over time. According to studies, glyphosate and surrounding plants, this affects surrounding plants and lawn beds. Alternatives will save you money. They are safe and they're effective. They're not just novel thoughts. They really do work. This isn't a small problem affecting only a few people. It's affecting all of us. The facts are there. You can create beautiful landscapes without chemicals. They're effective, safe, and affordable. This is the future. Our children are worth it. Thank you. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Any questions?
We have had discussion on a policy of restricting or limiting use. I don't know if we're prepared to give any detail on that at this point, but maybe they could speak to someone that we would have that detail with.
We just adopted a pest management program that I'd be happy to share with you. You use very little of the chemical you just noticed, but
Even in small amounts, it is harmful.
Understood.
And it's proven in clinical studies
I would
to
be
be that way.
happy to meet with you or have staff meet with you
Wonderful.
individually. And then
Okay.
you could come back and talk to council after that conversation if you wish.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
There's a gentleman right back there. His name is Kerry Rappold. Maybe he could get your contact information and we could set up a meeting.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I don't believe I have any other speaker cards for non-scheduled items. Is there anyone else that wants to speak at this point? If not, we will move along to a couple of other things that we do have on the schedule here. Must be getting towards summer, but we've got all kinds of proclamations to make here. Mr. Carlson, are you available? There he is. I believe that we are talking building safety, is that right?
That's correct.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Knapp and members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Dan Carlson, and I have the pleasure of serving as the city's building official. Thank you for reading and signing this proclamation. This proclamation is an important element in promoting Building Safety Month in May. It's also important for continuing our good outreach efforts to Wilsonville citizens in promoting building safety and encouraging efforts to improve our built environment. Not just in getting permits for construction projects, but overall safety of the spaces where we live, work, and play. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, Americans spend approximately 90% of our time in buildings or structures. Yet often, we don't give much thought to what goes into making a building safe or whether or not the space we are in will perform in the event of an emergency. It's always curious to me, of course, I'm a building official, this is what I do, that most folks don't really give a second thought to whether or not the buildings they're in are structurally safe, whether they have clean drinking water or have safe exits in an emergency. These things are most often taken for granted or just assumed. That is, until there's a tragedy or a disaster that really hits home. Our community has experienced such an event recently, which means it's an opportunity for us to raise awareness and engage in conversation around what makes our structures safe, durable, energy efficient, and accessible for individuals with disabilities. Every week in May is highlighted by a different theme this year. You will see the building division engage in social media and other outreach efforts throughout the month, along with lines of those themes. In fact, week 2 happens to have a theme of ensuring a safer future through training and education. So that is the theme of week 2. Our plan is to reach the captive audience and library at the library story time, where building inspection staff will build wood planter boxes and share building safety tips with kids, just like we did last year. It's a lot of fun, and it's a way for our inspection staff to connect with members of our community who they normally wouldn't be able to or have that opportunity to do so. So lastly, there are a lot of individuals in various roles in the development process. We saw from our fire folks here, fire officials here tonight being one of those, contractors being others, engineers, and of course, building inspectors. But one of those groups is you as our council. And I want to draw that out and bring that forward because I think it's something that we don't talk about very often, but you are a very important part of the development process. And I'd like to acknowledge your efforts as leaders and decision makers and just say that I really appreciate your time and the time that you put into taking that time to thoughtfully try to understand what are sometimes extremely complex technical issues. You listen, you try to understand, and I've worked with a number of you on a pretty detailed basis, and I can tell that you really care and you really want to understand, and I appreciate the questions that you ask. It helps us to get a solid perspective as a community as we try to make good decisions for our community, and I respect that and I appreciate that about working here. So thank you again for proclaiming May 2019 as Building Safety Month, and I look forward to sharing more as the month comes along.
Well, thank you for your work also. Any questions that council would like to ask of Mr. Carl?
I was just going to ask if you said you do outreach in schools from time to time. Does that ever include the high schools?
Yes, we don't actually, to be clear, we don't do outreach in schools yet.
Okay.
That is on our longer term strategic plan for outreach.
Okay.
We would very much love to do that. And we have some staff that are actually very interested in doing that.
Because it would seem like, especially when you have an opportunity like there's construction going on at a school, expansion or remodel or whatever, to have a few kids along on the inspection.
Absolutely.
On the part to actually see what you're doing, because I think most high school kids don't think of this as a career opportunity.
It is definitely a wonderful career opportunity. I can vouch for that.
But they haven't heard of it.
Right.
So and I think it's a very intriguing career when if they actually could see what you do when you are inspecting or comparing a plan, and is this right and is this right? And
yeah, great point.
I think it would be
great point.
For
Thank you.
High schoolers, I think it would be really interesting.
Anybody else? Well, let me read the proclamation, if I may. Whereas the community members of Wilsonville spend considerable time at home, at school, at work, worship, and play in buildings, and whereas our city places a high value on ensuring buildings are safe for the protection of its community members from disasters such as fire, windstorms, earthquakes, landslides, floods, and other natural hazards, and whereas No Code, No Confidence, the national theme for Building Safety Month, encourages community members to raise awareness of the importance of building and maintaining safe structures, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, water conservation, ADA accessibility, energy efficiency, alternative energy, and new technologies in the construction industry. And whereas the effective administration of building safety codes affects our community and gives us confidence that our structures are safe and sound, and whereas our confidence is increased by the devotion of professional building inspectors, fire prevention officers, design professionals, and licensed contractors who work year-round to ensure the construction of safe, durable, and sustainable buildings. And whereas in observance of Building Safety Month, Wilsonville community members are reminded about the benefits of safe and sustainable spaces, whether at home, work, or other places where we gather in our communities. Now, therefore, I, Tim Knapp, as mayor of the city of Wilsonville, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2019 as Building Safety Month and encourage all Wilsonville residents to join communities across America with participation in Building Safety Month activities.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Council.
Shall I hand you this formal certificate?
Photo op, photo op.
But that's not all. It is also Bicycle Month. And we have some
For the
folks.
10% of the time you're not in a building.
Yeah, right. Well, I encourage you to not be in the building all the time, right?
Let's increase that 10%.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You are a representative of
Smart.
Smart.
I am Sheila Griffin, and I'm
Okay.
a new employee at Smart. I started in January, and I'm a transportation demand management technician, which means that I'm working to encourage people to get out of single occupancy vehicles and seek other ways to travel. I'm here tonight to thank you for signing and reading the declaration of May as Bike Month. And I wanted to just share a couple pieces of information. I touched base with our engineering department and learned that the TWS road work was recently completed with bike lanes, making a nice continuous bike lane from Beckman to Graham's Ferry. There's some plans this summer for more bike lanes going nearby Frog Pond to Stafford Meadows, sorry. And Villebois is going to be adding bike ped multi-use path. And this summer, we have a bunch of activities going on for celebrating bikes. In May, May 8th is Bike to School Day, National Bike to School Day. So we're celebrating that with delivering bike ferry bags to students at school that bike to school. And the month of May, we are encouraging schools to encourage their students to walk and bike as much as possible in the month of May. In July, we are going to have a Saddle Up adventure bike camp here in Wilsonville in partnership with Washco Bikes, which is a Washington County advocacy and education organization, nonprofit. And on July 20th, we're going to do our bike rodeo again at the Wilsonville Wellness Fair. And in August, we are going to have a family-friendly bike ride at the community block party. So we've got a bunch of bike activities going on, and we're excited to kick it off with Bike Month in May. So thank you again for reading and signing the proclamation.
My pleasure. And sounds like you've got a lot of great events happening, and that's part of what makes our community such a great place to live is no end of different interesting things to do as we go forward. So let me read, if I may. Proclamation, Bike Month for May 2019. Whereas for more than a century, the bicycle has been an important part of the lives of most Americans. And whereas today millions of Americans engage in bicycling because it is a viable and environmentally sound form of transportation, an excellent form of fitness, and provides quality family recreation. And whereas the education of cyclists and motorists as to the proper and safe operation of bicycles is important to ensure the safety and comfort of all users. And whereas the ease of access for pedestrians and cyclists is crucial to ensuring their safety and encourages more active transportation. And whereas the City of Wilsonville's South Metro Area Regional Transit, SMART, works to reduce our carbon footprint by promoting bicycle use in an effort to lessen the number of cars on the road. And whereas the League of American Bicyclists and independent bicyclists throughout Oregon are promoting greater public awareness of bicycle operation, safety, and education to prevent crashes, injuries, and fatalities for everyone. Now, therefore, I, Tim Knapp, as Mayor of Wilsonville, do hereby proclaim May 2019 as Bike Month in Wilsonville. And I encourage all Wilsonville residents to ride their bicycles for fun and fitness, and for everyone to recognize the importance of bicycle safety and education. So, questions, comments?
I have a comment. I'm hoping May's weather is a lot better than April's because I've had my bike out tuned up and it's been challenging. Lots of puddles out there too.
I
so.
agree, I agree. And if it's not nice enough, we can just sort of roll into our other summer activities, hopefully, and embrace the community.
So I'll let you have this, and Bill, get another picture here for the message.
Oh,
Aw.
bike bling. Bike bling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's fun. I like the reflector.
Oh, thank you.
It's a cool reflector.
This goes on your wrist.
Proclamation.
Just get in there for Despero. I don't think so.
You're wearing that?
You can have it. You're welcome. You mean other than a hard time, right?
But wait, there's one more. We also have upon us Earth Day.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I guess I'm batting cleanup on the proclamations tonight, but so this is Earth Day, but I think of Earth Day as every day. So it's not just 1 month of the year, it's the whole year to celebrate the Earth. So this is actually the 49th anniversary of Earth Day. And it's certainly an opportunity for all of us to engage and, think about what this planet means to us and what we really, appreciate about it, and hopefully what we can provide to it. And so I guess I might just quickly mention two events. One, Councilor Lehan is very familiar with. Next Friday, April 26th, we'll be celebrating Arbor Day. And as part of that, 2 heritage trees will be dedicated. And so I know I'm looking forward to that event. It should be, quite enjoyable.
State heritage trees.
State heritage trees, I'm sorry. Yep. They're a very special designation. And then the following day, April 27th, is our annual work day. So that's an opportunity to come out also, be a volunteer, and do some good in terms of removing invasives and trying to make our community better in that way. So I thought to celebrate Earth Day, and Kim and I are going to try to do this. We'll see if it works out here. I would just show you some slides of some of the natural and scenic beauty that we just have here in Oregon. And I always think that's the best way to appreciate, what this planet provides to us. So I'm not sure. Are you ready? This may not work. So I'll just go through the slides. If it doesn't work, yeah, it looks like. I was going to play What a Wonderful World with Louis Armstrong singing it. So if anybody can sing really well, if you want to accompany this. So we're going to go from the valleys to the gorge. Yeah, that's always one of my favorite views, Vista Point. And, the waterfalls that we have in this wonderful state. And the mountains and the lakes with those. That's a beautiful scene. And then, of course, our lovely coast. And then just this wonderful planet that we live on. So what a wonderful world. And if we had the music, happy Earth Day.
Wow, that's nice. That's nice. I guess I shouldn't admit it, but I remember the first Earth Days.
Exactly.
It was a while ago, yeah.
Next time I'll get the music synced here, so I'm sorry I didn't give Kim enough advance notice on that.
So let me do the proclamation as a little briefer. Whereas Earth Day began in 1970 as a long-term endeavor to make the planet clean, healthy, and sustainable. And whereas Earth Day is celebrated around the globe by people of all backgrounds, faiths, and nationalities. And whereas community members of all ages can contribute to building a healthy society through the wise use and protection of our natural resources, including our air, water, and natural habitats. And whereas Wilsonville has always recognized the importance of protecting, conserving, and restoring our natural resources, thus creating a livable and vibrant community. Now, therefore, I, Tim Knapp, as mayor of Wilsonville, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2019 as Earth Day 2019 and pledge the city's support and invite all Wilsonville residents, businesses, civic groups, government, and other organizations to participate in celebratory and educational activities.
Thank you.
All right.
Carrie, did you take some of those pictures you were showing?
I wish I could say that.
If you said yes, you would have knew.
I know, I would have knew that. Yeah. Great, thank you.
But wait, I'm fresh out of proclamations, so. All right. Normally have some upcoming meetings, but we've spent enough time doing that, so I think I will defer that for another time and invite our council to give any comments on city-related events and communications that they have been involved in, starting with Council President Ackerball.
This last week, I met with Tualatin Valley Fire Rescue, Phil Gately, who's a captain at Station 52, to discuss kind of ways that they have interest and have had interest prior. I think we're always going to have the pre-Villebois fire and post-Villebois fire. It's like, it's such a huge event, but they've had interest pre and post of having opportunities to engage with the community. And I think even now with the post, to have opportunities engaging with the community where they're not maybe responding to an emergency, so that these relationships can be built in a positive association kind of opportunity or occurrence as well. So we talked about maybe different community events that they could look at being involved in, and possibly something with Lowry for the neighborhood school there, and also kind of make space to share information on emergency preparedness and safety, emergency information for families, how to build a safety plan, things like that. So that was a good meeting, and there will be more to come from that. I also wanted to kind of give a note. I don't know if you've been following the Parks and Rec, the giant eggs that they've been hiding the last couple of weeks, but I just think it's fantastic. So if you haven't noticed this, pay attention, because 5 p.m. on Fridays, they're hiding a giant egg in one of the city parks that's full of goodies. And also a certificate for a hammock that you can bring then to Parks and Rec office and trade it in for your hammock. And I just think it's a really cool, activity, because they post on social media like a little rhyme or a little clue about where the egg is hidden along with a picture. So it's very clever. I think it encourages, the first egg was found by a couple kids, I think, and then last week's egg was found by more young adult kind of age demographic, but it's encouraging all ages, all kinds of people to get out into the parks and explore and to follow along. And I think it's just a really clever, fun activity. So we have one more this Friday, 5 p.m. So tune in. They post it. It does not take people long to find these eggs, so you've got to be on it. If you think you're going to find it like Saturday morning, you are so slow. You need to be on it at 5 p.m. because that egg will be found probably in the first 20 minutes. So be ready. Be ready. 5 p.m.
All right. Exciting. Councilor Stevens.
Thank you. So Mayor Knapp and I met with the Committee for Community Enhancement Grant and did, that's a committee of citizens and our Mayor Knapp and I, and our Metro Councilor Craig Dirksen. It's funding for city enhancement projects through a Metro program that collects tipping fees because we have Republic Services here that does our waste collections. And so it generates about anywhere from $75,000 to $90,000 a year for these programs. And we met twice last week and a couple times. And we funded, the group unanimously approved the funding for the projects that were put forth. And I just give you an idea, I'm assuming that council, it'll be on council's agenda in the near future for the council to approve these. But really an engaged community committee. The people there had some really thoughtful questions for the applicants, and it was a robust conversation about these projects. So one is underway right now, and it's the pedestrian path that goes from the Willamette Way area over to Graham Oaks, that safety path where the pedestrian crossing across Wilsonville Road on the west side of town over by Graham Oaks Park will be a lighted, made more safer, yeah, flashing lights on that pedestrian walkway, and then a speed, your speed is a sign as you're coming off of that 45-mile-an-hour county road, country road into our town. So it'll make that safer, and that work is underway already. So that's being funded right away. It is the 30th anniversary of SMART, I think it is. Is it the 30th?
Yes.
30th, yes. And so SMART asked for, to celebrate for, to put flower baskets over by the West Station. There's a lot of concrete there. It's a bus station, you know. There's a lot of sidewalks, a lot of parking area. And so they'll have hanging baskets by a local nursery, and they'll spruce that up for the summer. The SMART people left, so they didn't hear about that. There's going to be some software purchased for the historical archives at the library that was organized by an archivist last year, and now they're going to put that all into a database, and they needed some money for the software to be able to enter all that into it. So then you can do a search for certain things, and there's something like 6,000 items, of about 3,000 are photographs that are over in Wilsonville's history collection over at the library. So that will be bought. And then Carrie Rappold, who just did the Earth Day presentation for us, he will be doing a stormwater education program and curriculum over at Boones Ferry Primary to work with the students of all grades about stormwater management and working with them out in the field there. And that was funded. And street tree infill project to, there's some, they did the survey. I don't know if you remember, a couple years ago, a couple of interns worked with the city and counted every street tree in the whole city, and now we have that database. So they're able to look at the gaps and the spots that don't have street trees, and they'll be working with neighborhoods. The city Public Works will be working with Friends of Trees and filling and neighborhoods, HOAs, or just a community group to plant more trees in people's yards or along the streets there. Let's see what else is here. Oh, and then lighting for Beauty and the Bridge, where that was, the money for that was earmarked, but there's some more conversations we have to have with ODOT, because ODOT is very particular about its land and its structures and freeway, on the freeway. And so, which surprised no one. But the idea is to make the underpass under the freeway where the tiles, where the students had done those wonderful tiles of all the animals and flowers there under the I-5 underpass, to light that so we can see that a little better, and also to make the underpass safer. So all those projects were funded up to a tune of about $90,000, and there was enough funding in the program to be able to fund them all. So that will be coming forward soon, and it was, it's really great that we are able to do these special projects in the city, and they're great creative ideas that enhance our community, which henceforth Community Enhancement Program. So the other thing that I know we have in our packet, quite a few things that are listed here. Anyone can go online and see all the events that are starting to ramp up because it's summertime. The one that I always like is, and it's not on here, it's the Bulky Waste and Hazardous Waste Day over at Republic Services. And I meant to look at the calendar. I think it's May 8th, or no, May 11th. It's a Saturday. It's coming up in a couple weeks. And so you can load up your trailer, load up your vehicle, and get rid of all your junk over at Republic Services once a year. Actually, they're doing it twice a year now. Don't they do it in the fall too? Yeah. So it's a great day. And then usually over here in the parking lot at City Hall, Metro does their hazardous waste. So I always bring my batteries, anything you need to get rid of that is toxic.
And we usually also, someone schedules a shredding day.
And shred day is on here,
Around the corner,
isn't it?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, document shredding day is April 20th. Yeah. At Academy of Mortgage. Yeah.
With Earth Day.
And keep you, shred that paper. Shred those trees. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Lehan.
I will be very brief. My only follow-up on the SMART deal is I don't think it's a 30-year anniversary of SMART.
What is it? It's an anniversary.
Well, I would defer to your historical reference points above mine. I thought.
Only because we don't have a SMART person here. We don't have a SMART person here. But
Do we know back there?
They are billing it as such.
They are billing it as such.
yes, but the first 2 or 3 years, it was WART.
WART. Oh,
yeah.
Remember, so
Thank God we rebranded that.
it was WART, and then it turned itself into
Regional
SMART.
Transit, yeah.
It was, yeah,
Rebrand. Rebrand.
it was Wilsonville Area Rapid Transit,
Yeah, get on our wart. Yeah.
and they put frogs all over the bus. No, they didn't have a bus. They didn't have a bus. They just had a van because they didn't really want to run a system.
I think somewhere there was a poster with the wart.
The wart
and
thing.
The frogs.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
We had
yeah,
a frog man named Wart.
yes.
Come a long way.
It's rebranded.
How we've come so far. Now we're new buses compared.
There. So then it became SMART, but it wasn't actually SMART 30 years ago. But the only other thing I would say is follow up on what Carrie said. On the 26th, that's a Friday, at 2 o'clock is when we're having the State Heritage Tree dedication at Memorial Park. And the other, the fun thing about it is it will be an opportunity to see up close with the skipper the Rainbow Bee, which is a 1937 towboat on the Willamette. It has worked the Willamette since 1937 and is soon to be retired. So it's a vintage towboat that the Bernards own, and so this is an opportunity to see that. We don't usually have boats at the tree dedications, you see. That's an unusual circumstance.
We have ordered a sunny day, so leave your umbrella at home.
So if people want to come, do they come to the big river shelter down there, and they'll
then
be?
we will walk down to the dock
Okay.
and to the tree sites.
Okay, great.
So, good chance to see a boat.
All right, Councilor West.
Couple big events around the corner that I'm super excited about, humbled by. That's going to be great for our community as we recover from the fire. McMenamins reached out to me, the general manager, and they offered to hold a special event on the 23rd from 5 p.m. to 11 o'clock. Half of all proceeds, not profits, but proceeds, will go towards a fire relief fund. We are now eclipsing $30,000 and higher to be able to bring immediate and future relief to those in crisis in our communities. We quickly formed a board. I mentioned this earlier in the work session. We're proud about that to make sure that we can ethically and transparently make sure these funds are given out. But this will be in a great event. The Whiskey Derby is performing, who is a local resident. I love that name. And we'll have hopefully a packed house. The local media has been speaking about it. Coin 6 and KPTV and I believe KXL today all were promoting the event. The next event is by our very, I'm so proud of our Rotary Club. They're absolutely phenomenal and they do great work, but they're going to do a night breakfast themed dinner event, and that's going to be at Lowry because we expect it to be packed, and it's going to be a thank you and kind of a community event that's free for everybody to come, but it's also a fundraiser. And so we have members of our board right now for the Relief Fund working with Rotary to get that event on May 9th. So we are excited about those two large community events that we have been working tirelessly to make happen. And we are proud that we have begun cutting those first checks to people in the community. I believe they started getting them actually today. So we have been working hard and we are happy and honored to see how the community is kind of galvanized, because that's who we are. That's our values, and it's been amazing. And one more thing, I had a chance to speak to Mayor Knapp and the city manager about this, but I can't wait to speak to the other council. I was invited to go to City Club of Portland and sit with Governor Ted Kulongoski on PERS solution issues, and I can't wait to speak to the council about one of the big topics that came up at City Club of Portland was the larger effect on municipalities in the future to meet our basic service needs as we have this looming crisis with PERS that's kind of hanging over. And we just saw the governor come out with her new plan this week. And it kind of starts to deal with the K through 12 part of it, but still local governments and municipalities are kind of in a lurch right now. And so working with PERS Solution, I know that they're meeting with a number of municipalities tonight across the state. So I look forward to sharing what we learned there with the rest of the council, planning for that, and hopefully getting a strategy going forward on how to deal with that looming crisis.
Okay, thank you. Let's get some real business done now, if we could. Starting with consent agenda, if we could ask for that to be read, please.
Resolution number 2731, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville to accept a land donation of approximately 31 forested acres in the Parkway Woods Business Park. Resolution number 2737, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville adopting an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County to support the work of the Willamette Falls Locks Commission.
Your Honor, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second, we approve consent agenda. Two items as read. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. Mr. Cosgroves?
I was just going to say that I did ask, and it was kind of an addition to the staff report because I wasn't sure what the tax implications were. And I just wanted to make sure that you all got the information.
That's
if
on
you
the,
had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Donated parkland that we just.
Right. And so I was curious because the staff report said there was no financial impact, and I just wanted to be clear that the assessor's estimate is that we would forego about $3,500 a year. The total for all taxing districts is about $32,000 per year. So there is some minor financial impact to everyone. But.
All right, thank you. Yep. That will bring us to our public hearing. Could we ask for that to be read?
Ordinance number 835, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Wilsonville adopting the Wilsonville Town Center Plan as a sub-element of the comprehensive plan and amending the text of the Wilsonville comprehensive plan map, zoning map, and development code.
So I will call to order the public hearing on ordinance number 835 as has just been read. Ladies and gentlemen, council will take public testimony tonight. in the public hearing format conducted as follows. First, staff will present their report, then we will receive testimony by proponents, opponents, and those neither in favor nor opposed to the proposed ordinance. If you wish to testify, please do complete a speaker card like this from the counter at the side of the room, pass it forward to the city recorder. When called, come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and make your statement. I do request those providing testimony not repeat testimony already given to council. Simply indicating your agreement with certain prior testimony is entirely sufficient. So, Ms. Batesshell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Knapp, councilors. My name is Miranda Batesshell, Planning Director with the City of Wilsonville. And with me this evening are members of the project team. We have Alex Stupi and Molly Cooney-Mesker, both from the consulting firm MIG, and also Zach Weigel, Capital Projects Engineering Manager, sitting there in the front row. I am very excited to be here tonight for a public hearing on the Town Center Plan. Tonight's agenda, staff will start by providing a brief summary of the plan and the planning process for the record, and for those that have not been following along during this two-year process quite as closely. After which, as the mayor mentioned, members of the audience will have an opportunity to provide comment to the city council. Staff will be happy to address any questions from the council, after which we look forward to your discussion and action on Ordinance 835, which the Planning Commission recommended for adoption. The map on this next page shows the town center plan area and where this plan applies and the land use actions being considered tonight. It's all of the properties that are within and adjacent to town center loop. The city council action tonight is to consider adoption of the Wilsonville Town Center Plan and amendments to the Wilsonville Comprehensive Plan text and map, zoning map, and development code. The materials in your packet that are being entered into the record attached to Ordinance 835 include Exhibit A, the Wilsonville Town Center Plan, and supporting appendices, which includes, the first appendices includes the development code and comprehensive plan amendments. Exhibit B is the zoning order to rezone the PDC-TC to the Town Center or TC zone. And then Exhibit C, which is the Planning Commission Resolution LP 19-003 and public record, which includes over 1,700 pages of public involvement, and the findings report, which outlines compliance with all state, regional, and local requirements. In addition, you received attachment 2 in your packet, which includes an errata sheet, which outlines minor non-substantive amendments for clarity purposes. This was amended today to include a second page that was presented before you, and copies are on the side counter for the public and for those interested. As you know, this has been a long-term project, and we've been working on it for quite some time. It's a very exciting and momentous milestone. I am grateful for this council's vision and your foresight to do this project, for establishing the Town Center Plan as a priority goal, and the commitment from all of you and our Planning Commission to help shepherd the project through this process, and to direct staff to engage the full community in a broad and meaningful way. We have been actively working with the community for the past 2 years, and I am so incredibly proud of their work and the work of all members of this city. We went to schools, saw people at all grade levels, their students, their families. We were at Wilsonville Community Sharing, lunches at the community center. We worked with business and property owners with support from the Wilsonville Chamber of Commerce. Residents, employees, and business owners all took time out of their schedule to attend focus groups, workshops, open houses. They took 3 different surveys and answered 2 years' worth of questions of the month that we had posted online and in the library. They talked to us at the Fun Run, Trivia Nights, Brewfest, Fun in the Park, Rotary concerts, and neighborhood meetings. And it is their commitment and their vision that set the priorities that are outlined in this plan that I present to you this evening. And they will be integral to us in implementing the actions that are set forth in it. I am particularly proud of the project task force for doing the hard work and rolling up their sleeves and staying true to both the community's input, but also helping us work through the details. They were a very critical part of the team that did this project. I would like to acknowledge Ms. Whaler and Mr. Diller, both are here this evening. Mr. Spence and Ms. Alexander were also here this evening, but I think had to leave. They were members of the task force that worked so diligently on this project. I want to note the Planning Commission's diligence and thoughtfulness, particularly around the details of the development code that we present to you this evening, holding numerous work sessions until it was ready. I believe this is a truly visionary plan, driven by the community. It's driven by their values. It's broad and it provides direction for the city in many ways. It drew staff from throughout the city at the table, and I want to recognize our partners at SMART, in Parks, Public Works, Legal, and throughout the Community Development Department, who were all part of the team that really pulled this plan together. Like the center plan that was created in the 1970s, the Wilsonville Town Center Plan sets the framework for the future. It sets this community's aspirations for future generations that will live, work, and gather together in this wonderful city. So I will now hand it over to Molly, who will walk you through the plan and those aspirations. Thank you.
Thanks, Miranda. Good evening, Mayor Knapp and councilors. As you know, this planning process has been in the works for 2 years, and throughout the entire process, at each milestone, the community has been involved and revisited. And we want to take a quick walk down memory lane tonight to remind ourselves of how we got here, where we've come from, for the benefit of anyone who isn't as familiar with the process, and to celebrate really how we got here. So this city has really had a commitment to Town Center being a truly community-driven plan. With that, the city has hosted a multitude of events and various venues, various activities, and all the community joined us at more than 100 events. We heard from a diversity of community members, including a strong youth voice, as Miranda mentioned. The project team has processed thousands of comments and survey responses. While there were a range of perspectives, pretty quickly some common priorities from the community emerged. The community's priorities are the foundations for this plan and include a walkable and bike-friendly town center with thriving local and regional businesses, and that the plan and the future development be in line with local and environmental stewardship goals. Community input on parks and open spaces, land uses and transportation informed the initial building blocks that evolved eventually into the detailed plan that we see today. The importance of open spaces to the community, gathering spaces, places to come together in all seasons, was apparent from the very start. Based on initial input and ideas, 3 open space concepts were developed, and those were refined to what we see today. Community members also voiced their desire for a street network that forms a walkable grid that connects different uses and adjacent neighborhoods to the town center. Community members wanted land uses that encourage active streetscapes, that bring people together, that include a diversity of services, local businesses, and are also compatible with the surrounding uses that exist and the existing businesses and uses within town center. The building blocks were measured against the planning framework, and were refined into the community design concept. And to create this comprehensive concept, this initial kind of pass of this comprehensive concept that is largely reflected in what we see today. The Task Force Planning Commission and community members' input further were advanced to the community concept. And on February 8th, the open house participants, sorry, I got ahead of myself a little bit. Open house participants provided feedback on each of the building blocks and the overall concept, confirming the input that we had heard along the way. And with this, the concept was advanced. Community members could start to imagine what their future town center would look like on the ground. Excitement around a main street, a vibrant multi-use main street, continued. And at our last block party event, community members actually got a chance to test out some of these elements that are proposed on this new main street. So that brings us to where we are today and how the plan really came together. The community envisions town center as a compelling destination that's anchored by a modern main street. They're eager for active public spaces and community gathering places, which include the existing town center and memorial parks, a gateway plaza, at the future bridge landing, a network of parks and open spaces, including the promenades and skate park that bring you throughout town center. They envision a street network that serves specific functions where you can safely walk and bike as a family that get you through and around Main Street in an efficient way, and that bring people from outside of town center into town center. We see how that network of these various types of streets come together and work together with these examples here, the Park Place Town Center Park, Park Place Extension, and Southwest Courtside Drive. Examples of what these might look like. And with this is a multimodal network that really starts to make connections where you can move through town center safely on bike and foot, getting through into various destinations within town center. Just a reminder of the analysis, the extensive analysis that went into this. We looked at the types of development that are feasible and the land that's currently available to see what's likely to develop first, when, and where. The market analysis shows what's most likely to develop due to current market conditions and what will likely take a little bit longer. Whoop. As we know, this is an incremental transformation and will not all happen at once. Right now, this is what town center is today, and we see a lot of vacant land and large parking lots. In the first phase, in this first now into the next 10 years, what's likely to happen is infill on this vacant land and underutilized parking. We see the new Main Street come in, the Park Place Extension, that really starts to become the spine for future development activity. And some of the local street good also will likely come in with new development. In the next phase, phase 2, 10 to 20 years out, more amenities come into place with more development, more bicycle and pedestrian amenities. The proposed bicycle pedestrian bridge over I-5 is in place, and there's a diversity of uses, more office and mixed use. It really starts to become the vibrant town center that the community has imagined. And then into full build out. And this is sort of the complete vision of what town center could look like 20 years and beyond. And some of these elements, depending on market conditions, could be sooner or later. But this is fully, the multimodal transportation work is complete. High activity land uses are in place, especially over here, close to I-5. So how we get there, I'm gonna pass it over to Alex.
So thank you. And part of this plan, actually about half of this plan is really about implementation. So it is a long-term vision, but what are those specific steps that we actually need to start to move to get to that long-term vision? We know that this is incremental over time. And when we thought about how we would start to think about, how do you actually break up a large area with a bunch of different elements, we developed a series of categories that are based on partly the community feedback, but also partly pieces like the feasibility analysis or the traffic analysis to make sure that each of these elements are tied to each other, but also, tied to realism. What do you really need to do now to support a future action? So we have the regulatory actions, which we've talked about, which are really the code, comprehensive plan code development, which are a part of this plan already. Potential infrastructure investments that are phased over time, depending on what location and what part of the project you're talking about. Specific parking strategies, we know that's been a big issue throughout this process. But also, thinking more broadly about placemaking strategies. How do you create a great space and a sense of place that people have told us very directly really want town center to become, to experience, like the large Easter egg. How do you do that so that you can have that every day? But not least, the economic development strategies. How do you actually pay for this, both publicly and privately? What are some of those leverage factors that you can use to actually start to make some of these happen? And then finally, and it's great to see SMART as 30 years in the city of Wilsonville, having those specific transit investments in mind, knowing that we want people to walk and ride their bikes and not just be able to drive around. So with regulatory actions adopted with the plan, comprehensive plan and development code, also minor amendments to parking standards, certainly requiring a certain amount of parking, but being more flexible in how that's provided within town center. And then breaking this up into short, medium, and long-term actions. Addressing specific things like updating your other plans, your parks plan, your transportation system plan. Those are things that will be adopted through those processes over time. But starting to lay out that process to make sure that everything's consistent as you move forward. But doing some fun things too, maybe a parklet competition, thinking about some of those early action placemaking kind of events to actually start creating an energy within town center. So don't wait for that big project. Start to think about things you can do now. As we get into some of the longer term actions, those become some of the bigger projects. Where many of these infrastructure projects are expensive. So being able to program those, to design those, to work with landowners and property owners to make sure it's the right time to do those types of projects. Being able to leverage adjacent development to be able to create some of these public spaces. These are longer term actions because they're more complicated, to be honest, and they're also often more expensive. But specific things like Park Place, that Main Street extension that we've been talking so much about over the past few years, but also things we've heard about that take more planning and maybe less investment, but require a large public investment in terms of time, like a farmer's market. You have to establish a program to be able to actually do that. You have to find the space. You have to have the committees and the volunteer effort to be able to get that to happen. So maybe not a big public investment, but certainly a community investment to be able to have those things to happen. So I could go on for a long time on implementation. We've talked a lot about these specific pieces. We'd be happy to take questions. But with that, I'd like to leave that there and then just talk about next steps. So this is a public hearing. Our next meeting is potentially May 6th for the second reading. But with that, I'd just love to open it up for questions and get your thoughts on the plan itself. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Council, questions? Councilor Stevens.
So how engaged are the current property owners in this conversation? We talked about community members and the library and the open houses you've had. But what about current property owners?
It varies. So we, throughout the project, have solicited the participation of property owners in Town Center. From the beginning, when we solicited participation on the task force, we sent that to every property owner and business owner in Town Center, and a number of them participated on the task force. We have also had, many of them cannot participate regularly on the task force, and some of them aren't located locally. So in those situations, we've been trying to meet at least once every 6 months by phone or in person to communicate and provide updates, get their input, get their concerns, and understand that as we go through the planning process. And we just recently had a meeting with a property owner about 2 weeks ago. So it's an ongoing dialogue, particularly as we start to adopt this plan and there's interest and thoughts on what that means for their property.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I wanted to get a perspective, if I could, and I'm not sure who would be best to answer. Is this effort putting us closer to cutting edge? Is it on the cutting edge? Is it, what are most other cities doing or not doing? I mean, are we pushing the envelope here? Are we catching up from behind? I mean, what is your perception of this concept?
You want to start?
Sure, I can start with that. We've worked in a number of jurisdictions across the country, and I think one of the biggest challenges is a type of project like Town Center, where you have existing development that you have to address, but you also have a vision for a type of land use that may be different than what's there today. And I think that's something that we've been working with throughout this process to be able to engage as many businesses as well as community members to find a particular balance, I think, between what exists versus what the next 20 years are. And we're seeing that in a lot of different jurisdictions. The city of Tigard, Hillsborough, Gresham, a lot of the suburban jurisdictions are facing similar challenges in that they have a land use pattern. And this isn't just Oregon, we're working in Washington, Boise,
all over the country in this, where you have a suburban land use development pattern, which is contrasted with a changing demographic that is not necessarily looking at having that type of development pattern, or at least a modified version of that. And so I think from a cutting edge standpoint, this is a bold vision for the plan. But I think from a city standpoint, a jurisdiction standpoint, you're dealing with issues that are very similar to other jurisdictions that have a similar development pattern, and they're trying to change to the best of their ability to be honest, to be competitive with each other for residents, but also for future businesses, because they're looking for walkability, and employers are looking for walkability because that's what their employees are looking for. So I think it's bold, but it's not unusual for what you're seeing in other local jurisdictions.
Councilor West.
One thing that maybe my generation, and maybe more than just us, that I hear amongst my peer groups in the community is the lack of diversity within just not only just culture, but restaurants and things like that. So we often feel like we have to drive into Portland to go to like Le Pigeon or Ox or some great restaurants like that, or even some places like Las Primas or the more cheap eats, but they just provide such quality and artistry in their community. And I feel like that's like one little nugget missing in that. Do you think that this, in your opinion, would draw maybe more of that type of industry beyond just chains or boxes, and maybe some diversity within our business community? And if so, why do you specifically think it would maybe make us look a little more vibrant in that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the earliest pieces that we started with on this plan was a market assessment of actually, is there demand for more restaurants or more demand for specific services? And Bob Gibbs, who's a internationally recognized market analyst, looked at the market and said that yes, there is demand for those types of restaurants. One is that you have a lot of employees that are actually coming down from Portland or Tigard or other places to work within Wilsonville, but there's few options for that type of dining that you're talking about. So there is that opportunity just from a market standpoint to have that. I think the examples you bring, like those Portland examples, they locate where there's a vibe, and Town Center doesn't quite have that yet, and so that's what Town Center residents want, or excuse me, Wilsonville residents are looking for, and I think that's where this plan is trying to go, is to create a space that is of interest to those types of businesses. I think more importantly is to think about your local businesses and what opportunities those bring, because there's some great local restaurants already in Town Center, and so how, one, do you support them to stay where they're at, but also kind of create that catalyst that starts to attract some of those other smaller businesses that provide great service and great amenity.
So one concern I've heard, just kind of on the same theme, is that the market competitiveness of what we have now and the regular automobile mall is kind of passing by, and doing nothing over the next 20 years will almost guarantee that we lose inertia, we lose vibrancy, we lose to other places that are working more to accommodate the more current demand and re-envision themselves. Do you think that those are accurate perceptions? That
yes, I do. I think there are, as I said, a number of jurisdictions who are trying to capture a market that is both young and old. Millennials are looking for the same things that retirees are. They're looking for walkability. They're looking for ease of access to the outdoors or services. And if there's not a place for that, then those folks will find a place, and whether it's Wilsonville or someplace else. So how we've thought about Town Center, and I think how the community has thought about Town Center, is that's that place for Wilsonville. And being able to provide that walkability and that market, it's critical that housing is a part of that. And that's what drives those services and those varied options. And so if you don't do anything, then, Town Center could look the same way in 20 years, and other places around can grow. So I think there is something about that to think about how you portray yourself and what you're doing.
And we're seeing trends of owners of shopping centers in other cities having to diversify their portfolio, that those shopping centers are having to change, they're having to redevelop, they're having to add these additional uses because the retail world is shifting so much. And that the cities that are planning for that and that are making that possible are the places that they're doing that in. So that is something that we are seeing and is being reported back from the market side.
Okay. Thank you all. I, at this point, have but one speaker card. If there's anyone else that would like to speak on this topic, please do complete a card and pass it forward to the city recorder there. At this point, I will request Garrett Stevenson to come forward. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Knapp, members of the council. My name is Garrett Stevenson. My address is 1211 Southwest 5th Avenue, Suite 1900, Portland, Oregon 97204. I'm here tonight to represent one of the property owners that currently holds property in the existing town center. That's the Doris Marjorie Rose Dunn Trust, which owns the property that the Sherry's is located on at the corner of Town Center Loop West and Park Place. Behind me tonight is trustee John Dunn, and I believe he participated initially in the task force when this plan was first gelling. And I want to start out by saying that we're supportive of the plan as a general matter. We're supportive of the land use changes in particular, the idea that we want to bring more mixed use and more density in. And I think that my client recognizes the importance of additional opportunities for walking and biking and multimodal transportation. And frankly, that is par for the course, certainly in the Portland metro area. The only reason we're here testifying tonight, other than to provide that lauding of the plan, is that we want to make sure that the council has its eye out to protect some of the existing businesses. These folks have been here for a long time, not just Sherry's, but a lot of the other stuff that maybe is not as interesting as some of the things that the city wants to see located here, or maybe that's the perception. But I want to say that it's important to look out for these folks. They've kept the home fires burning in this town center for the last 30, 40 years, and Sherry's is just one of those. And we're going to talk tonight very briefly about two issues in the plan, and these are entirely related to the transportation and very specific elements of the transportation changes anticipated by the plan. And really, these relate to two main priorities that makes a restaurant like Sherry's work. Number one is visibility. Number two is access. And our concern is that there's two elements to this plan that would really negatively affect that if they were to happen extremely quickly and without some really good, thoughtful planning. The first is the proposal to eliminate the left turn movements on Town Center Loop West. Right now, if you were to try, we're guessing that most of our folks are coming in, making a left turn from Wilsonville Road and heading directly to the Sherry's. That's because they can see it. And if you look at page 10 of the DKS alternatives report, it's also noted as item number IN7 in the plan. This would basically prevent that turning movement. The other proposal is to convert Park Place, which is the other potential access route to the restaurant. If I may, I'd like to briefly finish up. The other proposal is to convert that small section of Park Place into a multi-use path. And the problem with this particular combination of transportation changes is that it would prevent an easy access if you're coming in from Wilsonville Road on the one hand, but also if you're trying to get there from the new central town center road, the main street. It would prevent you from having a direct route to the restaurant. So those are two very practical things that we wanted to bring to your attention. And certainly it's not our desire to get in the way of this great plan or the progress of the city, but we want to make sure that the council understands what the potential impacts of these two small issues are. So our goal is to ensure the viability of the business through the economic life of the building. And we would never arrogate ourselves to say you have to stop the entire plan for that time. But what we would encourage you to do is perhaps one of two things or perhaps both things. Number one, we'd like to make a modest request that these signal changes and the immediate conversion to bike ped plan for Park Place be deferred for 7 or 10 years. And based on the development schedule that I heard your consultants talk about, that might not be the biggest deal anyway. But if the council does move forward very aggressively with this, we'd like to have a chance to work out a specific development program for timing these improvements to make sure that while that Sherry's may not be there forever, we want to make sure that while it's there, it's a viable business. And just to conclude, I encourage you all to support the current landowners and the current businesses, because these are going to be the folks that ultimately make the hard decisions that ultimately implement the plan and see these land use and transportation changes. So with that, I thank you for your time. Apologize for running over a little bit, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Council, any questions right now? I don't see any. Thank you very much. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak to ordinance 835? I see none at this point. I would like to invite staff to come back up and see if there's any comment or information you would like to impart, especially with regard to comments that we've just heard.
Yes, I can go ahead and start, and then I probably would like to ask the Capital Projects Engineering Manager, Zach Weigel, to also come up and address maybe some of these questions and concerns. I would address the council back to a conversation that we had over a year ago. We started the conversation about the transportation network, about the proposed changes, starting to look at what different alternatives were in those different community design concepts and running traffic analyses on those. And through that conversation, this was something that we brought up. There was dialogue at the council about access for different properties throughout the town center and how those would get accessed if we did essentially see the extension of the Main Street, additional roads being built, additional local streets, and also the modifications to the Wilsonville Road intersections. And this was something that we were very mindful about when we went through that process, to think about the overall pros and cons of the different options in the network and trying to figure out what those meant for the system. And we can walk through a little bit, remind you all a little bit about those different benefits that we see from looking at those changes. On the second issue related to the promenade, this is not, the Park Place Promenade is not an immediate project. This is a mid to long-term project. It's outlined in the plan as something that would happen after all of these other transportation improvements are made. That's not a road that we could modify into either a Wooner or a promenade until the Main Street is constructed, the Wilsonville Road intersection improvements are done, and the Courtside extension are done. In addition to that, it's not outlined as a framework project. It's not outlined as a project that would really be pushed forward by the city as an immediate project or high priority project. It's one that we would see happening alongside private development. So in this case, in terms of the issue outlined by Mr. Stevenson, there isn't an immediate plan to construct that promenade, and there already is that delay that we likely see being beyond the 10-year timeframe. So I don't know, Zach, if you want to come up and talk a little bit about the improvements to Wilsonville Road and the system improvements we see from that.
Yeah, so I think, one of the challenging issues with the town center if you look at the existing traffic conditions out there, about 2/3 of the traffic that goes through Town Center use Town Center Loop West. So going forward, whether we, with this plan or without this plan, it's not sustainable long-term for the growth in the region to keep occurring and that intersection to not fail. So what we looked at was the need for the extension of the main street. And along with that, you need certain improvements at each of the intersections to make that Main Street intersection work. And one of those is to remove those left turn lanes at Town Center Loop West and redistribute that traffic at the Main Street and at Town Center Loop East. So you are redistributing the traffic that moves through Town Center and making those intersections work more efficiently. One of the added benefits that comes with that is that you're able to meet all of the city's operating standards at those intersections, but also add multimodal improvements to Town Center Loop West, adding bike lanes and better pedestrian facilities that don't exist there now. So one of the things that we heard a lot through the planning process for this project is that people are not comfortable crossing Wilsonville Road at that intersection, and these improvements would help make that possible, make it a lot safer. So,
Thank you.
So I think I follow all of that, mostly. What happens then, so if you can't turn left at that first intersection and someone's trying to get to the Sherry's Restaurant, how are they going to do it? What's going to be are we providing a reasonable way for access to those existing businesses to enable them to still succeed, even while these other changes are maybe in the offing over a period of years?
yeah, keep in mind that the plan has a lot more internal connectivity between the local roadways. So we wouldn't envision that change making until the Main Street is extended and people would turn left there and be able to use the internal local roadway connections to get to Sherry's.
And so essentially the primary path would be to go to the new Main Street and turn left there, which would only be about 1/8 of a mile or less between where the existing Town Center Loop West is. And depending on how development builds out, there would be then another local road that they could use to connect to that property.
Council, any other questions for staff? All right. That being the case, and seeing no other members of the public, I am going to close the public hearing and ask council, what's your pleasure with regard to ordinance number 835 on first reading?
I'm sorry. Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance number 835 on first reading.
I'll second.
And I would remind the council that we had an errata sheet that was brought forward tonight, and
Those few
do you want to acknowledge that as part of the motion?
Okay. So I move to approve ordinance number 835 on first reading with the inclusion of attachment 2 errata sheet that provides minor changes to the plan that was submitted.
Thank you. Is that good with a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all right. Moved and seconded. Discussion.
I'll go.
Councilor Stevens.
So the one body that I also do want to acknowledge is the work the Planning Commission has done on this. They have put in, I'm sure, countless hours and reviewed and re-reviewed this plan. And I'm always heartened to see a unanimous decision. So I know they worked out a lot of the details and dug deep, much deeper than the council did, taking all the information from all community members businesses that you gathered, and then came up with a really great plan. So I just want to acknowledge the work that they did as well on this, and appreciate all they do for our community.
Thank you. Councilor Ackerball.
I agree with Councilor Stevens' comments there, and also the comments that were made earlier, appreciation for the task force. Not just limited to the task force, because there were so many other community members that have put lots of time and input and energy into this as well, but I've gotten to know some of the task force members more and seen their work directly, and it's had a huge impact. I think the real strength of this plan is because of that, because there's been so many people involved, and it wasn't developed out of a singular lens of what this place could be. It was developed and birthed from many different roles and interactions in this space. And, you know, even the comments that we've heard tonight, I appreciate hearing those comments, and I hope that we will continue to have that kind of dialogue and back and forth and investment by all parties in this space, because I think that's what's going to make it something really special. Regarding some of the traffic, I'm recalling from conversations in the task force that one of the concerns is how clear is the traffic patterns now. If I want to get to, you know, this particular point in town center, am I wandering through parking lots? And sometimes it's hard to know what the most direct way is, you know. It's one thing to look at it on a map and say, yeah, that's the fastest street. I've lived here for 10 years and I still like drive a different way to the post office every time, you know, because it's way over there. Should I come from, you know, Beckman and come down, or should I go town center, you know, west, east, and cut through a parking lot? I mean, so I think the importance is having a clear plan, because what nobody wants is intersections that are getting gummed up and it's a bear to get in and out of a specific area. Nobody wants that. We want to have something. It's very important that the traffic flows. Traffic is something that we hear about on council, right? It's people are paying attention to that, and that's something that we want to have flowing well in that area, so that people can access those businesses, and the vibrancy of the commercial area there is really fed by having efficient flows. So I think that's definitely gone into looking at, okay, how can we work with this, and how can we plan for a long run here as things change over time, and as we do have more traffic that is coming in and out of that area. People are moving to Wilsonville every day, and moving to Oregon, moving to Portland. You know, I mean, time changes our landscapes. So how can we be proactive in working with that? And I appreciate the work that's gone into that. And I call on all of us to keep at it as this, you know, as it lays out over time, as changes happen, because it's going to take that continued energy and involvement and investment to make this a really special place in the future. So thank you to everyone's involvement and the continued work that we have. I'm excited to see what is to come in this area. I'm very excited. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor West.
I will make it clear that when I walk into Sherry's, a lot of the waitresses know me by name, and that I have written, I think I wrote a paper, an extensive paper on the healthcare delivery system within the Ukraine. And I had to pull an all-nighter before I turned it in, and yes, I got an A on it, and they made my coffee, it kept coming. And so I appreciate that. So Sherry's is, we go there for breakfast, we go there all the time. Oddly, like, it piques a concern because I want to make sure, obviously, my family, and I have my little Sherry's card, and I get my points, and I think I have $10 on it now. So I want to make sure that stays vibrant because I've utilized that business often. And I know that model, right off freeway access, 24 hours, easy access to get to it is really, they've been a great partner to our community. But I also think that when you go through a massive change like this, and you have to accommodate so many different businesses and perspectives and ideas and agendas, and how smoothly that our community has been able to walk that tightrope to get where it is today and to create something like the mayor brought up, so cutting edge, is a testament to how we work as a community. I don't know going forward if there's a process that we can find a way to say, is this a way that we can tweak something else with making sure that this good business is taken care of? I don't know if that's too far down the process, but I hear their concern, and I don't want to say we've done all these great things and then this is like a lost leader. I don't want that to be our tone either. So I wonder if there's a way that we can, I don't know if collaborate. I don't know where we're at in this process, but I hear them. I hear their concern, and I want them. And the mayor brought it up too. I want to make sure that that existing good partner is at that location and planned on that long term, because that's where they needed to be viable as a business and their model. And they've been a great business. Sunday before church, go to Sherry's and have some waffles, and then go to church with your family. I mean, it's just kind of, they've been there, they're in a great location. So I don't know what the other council thinks about that. And I don't think you disagree with me. And we all are very impressed with how we've been able to roll out Town Center and how far that it's come. Right now, it's what we have planned, and from where we're coming from is amazing. So once again, I know we always thank you guys, an awesome job. So I don't know what you guys think about that. Can anything be done to tweak it to help that access point? I don't know. I just want to see what you guys think about that.
Councilor Lehan.
It's an issue throughout Town Center, and I think that we've made a lot of efforts from the beginning, from 2 years ago. Certainly I have, for a lot of the existing businesses, most of whom do not own the land they're on. And I had spoke up early on about the international flavor, especially of the Shenandoah Square, where we have Thai and Japanese and Mexican and a Mexican market, and right in this little tiny area. And I know those are businesses, family-owned businesses in most cases there, who don't own the building, and they are the most vulnerable tenants. They are like we saw, well, some of us old enough to have seen in Lloyd Center. They lost almost everyone. They just couldn't hang on. The little ones couldn't hang on when Lloyd Center did its major remodel. So I think that was a demonstration, and that's of what can happen if you don't pay attention to your existing, not only business owners, landowners, but also the tenants of those buildings. But there's no way to say we're going to, we have to change it. We have to change it. Bob Gibbs recognized back 15 years ago, when we thought, when Town Center was pretty darn new. It hasn't been there 40 years. It wasn't there at all when I first came on the council. And or they were just building the Safeway, Thriftway building at the time. We thought it was pretty brand new, pretty darn new, and Bob Gibbs saw it as in trouble then, compared to Village at Main or even Fred Meyer's, which wasn't even under construction yet. But because of the way it was laid out, because it was so auto-centric, and the first thing he said then was, you need more rooftops. You need more dwelling units and or more office space. You need more people in here because these businesses are too spread out the way they are, and he didn't see. He even then, when we thought it was pretty new and thought it had serious limitations without change, and now we're further down the road, and I think there's a lot more consensus that it needs to adapt and move in that direction, and a lot of the parts of it depend on the other parts. So I think it is more a matter of the timing, as Miranda was explaining. It's a matter of how that's not going to happen, that intersection change is not going to happen until the internal piece is ready. So all of those things will happen as they happen, and it may take 20 years. But I think it would be dangerous to say we're not going to change this intersection, or we're not going to put this road here. I think all of those things will move along as they move along, but I think this is our best vision we can come up with right now. We have to watch out for our existing businesses, and it will adapt as we go along. But I wouldn't do anything to stop inject into the vision. We already know that intersection, the way it exists now, that left turn is failing now. It will fail completely very soon. And if you want to see failure, go to Cabela's. Try to get in and out of there with it sitting right
all the time.
Work out at LA Fitness and it's.
With an LA Fitness and Cabela's and the home, whatever there's a number of places there I would like to go to more often, but you have to have an extra half hour to get in and out of that place. And it's crammed up on their one and only interchange. That one, I think we have to look around how other communities, and that's what we've been doing. Do we want to look more like downtown Lake Oswego, more like Bridgeport, more like the Cabela's thing? You've got to look around and say, well, what exactly what is our vision? And I think this is a vision that ultimately could be better than all of those, and be unique to Wilsonville, be a Wilsonville product. So, but I think we got to go with it. It has been through, as everyone has said, a lot of work by community members, by business owners, by the Planning Commission, and so I wouldn't second guess it at this point, as long as we continue to remind everybody going forward that we want to watch out for our existing businesses and make sure they're able to come through transitions.
And that's a message we can send to our economic development manager as well as we move forward with implementation.
I don't disagree with anything I've heard on the dais here on this topic. I think all those considerations are important. It certainly is my intent that our existing businesses continue to have a pathway to success. Part of the intent in long run is to give them a better chance of success than they've got today under the old model. Yes, it's critical that we be sure staff is working with each individual step as it comes forward to figure out timing. If this is going to change, then what else does that mean? Do we need to accommodate some other piece to make it work? Let's be thoughtful about how the pieces go together. It's a puzzle that we're going to have to put together one piece at a time and figure out how to make each piece as successful as we can. So I concur that there's nothing that is appropriate for us to tweak today, just to acknowledge the complexity of what we are proposing going forward and make a commitment to our community, including our businesses in our business community, that we are going to work to make everybody successful in the best way we can. Change is scary sometimes because you're going from something you don't know to something that you envision but can't quite see yet. I think we can do this. I think we have the skills on staff. I think we have strong indications from the private sector that they have interest in working toward moving this forward. I think that we have, as Councilor Lehan said, potential to make something that is unique and in some ways more desirable than we find in some of our neighboring communities. And I think that with the commitment to make that happen, that we have huge upside prospects on this plan. So I'm very enthused about it, not to discount the complexity and the difficulty of making it happen, but to recognize that it's worth the effort and it's worth the work and it's worth the investment that we make this happen and have a more vibrant community, more business opportunities, more successful opportunities, and build a community where people want to be, and it's an attractor where people come, thereby making the businesses more successful and growing our community in that way. So I think we're on the right track, and I think it's a matter of just opening the door and understanding that this isn't the end, this is the beginning, and then figuring out, okay, how does the next piece work? How does the piece after that work? How are we going to accommodate all the needs? That's what we need to do.
And it will continue to be adapted as we go on, as it has before. You can't believe how controversial, you probably remember, how controversial it was when we split the apple.
Right.
Because the original planners and city fathers and mothers really, really didn't want it ever split. It was supposed to have a lake like Tualatin, originally, and they didn't want that road,
Want a road up the middle, you had to go around the outside, yeah.
And we opened that up, and that was like, oh my gosh, that was, but.
It works now.
But if you didn't have it now, really, and it goes up into Parkway and, so it never was it never was what it was first envisioned, and this will probably never be either. It will be something like this, but we're trying to move it in a better direction than it is now, but it will always keep evolving as it goes.
Okay, other comments? Well, if that's the case, I'm going to ask for the vote on the motion that's on the table to approve ordinance 835 on first reading. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Bringing us to, we've got a few minutes, so don't run into our 10 o'clock hour here. We can get done maybe. Ordinance number 834 on second reading.
Ordinance 834, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville approving comprehensive plan text and map amendments and transportation system plan amendments related to the Basalt Creek concept plan and approving a comprehensive plan map amendment related to the Coffee Creek master plan.
Do we have staff on this tonight?
Second reading, there's nothing else that came in, but
Well, I know there was one question presented because I wrote the question.
did you want to
will
paraphrase
take-
your question? But Miranda can come up if. Do you want to come up? Go ahead.
Yeah. It was a question about the structure of the areas of special concern and what effect this wording has. It seemed a little ambiguous to me.
So again, Miranda Bateshell, Planning Director, City of Wilsonville. I think the question that came in today was regarding the two different exhibits to the ordinance. The first one is the comprehensive plan language, and the proposal there is there's some implementation measure language that's being added, but there's also a description being provided for areas of special concern M and areas of special concern N. That's an area of the comprehensive plan that we have that kind of, when we do a concept plan area or we know we're going to concept plan it, we provide a description of the things we know about the area and how we want to plan for it in the future. It essentially sets the stage then for us to later do master planning, provide zoning code language, comprehensive plan designations, all of that. So there is, within the comprehensive plan text amendments, there's those two areas of special concern, the Basalt Creek planning area and the West Railroad planning area, that are added to that comprehensive plan language. The question that came in was then in the DKS memo, which is Exhibit B to Ordinance Number 834, on page 6 of 8, there was a description of what is a map change, essentially, that in the transportation system plan, we have a map that's of the southwest quadrant of the city, and one of the projects there is the Brown Road alignment. And at the time that that map was last updated, it provided two options for that alignment, and the way that it was noted in the little call-out box said area of special concern. It used the exact same language, even though it's not referring to the same thing. It just basically was noting that this project, this area, there is a special note here to identify the fact that there are two potential alignments and that an alignment will need to be chosen, but that hadn't been determined at that time. So what's being proposed on page 6 of 8 is, for figure 5.5, is to remove that text box, that call-out box to that project, because an alignment was chosen by City Council, and that was adopted a year plus ago, maybe two. The years blend together now. And so we would be removing the alignment for the Bailey Street connection for project RE-04B Brown Road extension, which is how it's described on page 6 of 8. So
it doesn't relate to removing the just drafted
No.
area M or N?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, that's the clarity I needed to see. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? If not, what's council pleasure with regard to ordinance 834 on second reading?
I move to adopt ordinance number 834 on second reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion? If not, I'll call for a roll call vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Well,
Roll call.
On roll call, sorry.
Counselor West,
Aye, right?
Counselor Stevens, Council President Ackerval. Aye. Counselor Lehan,
Aye.
Mayor Knapp.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. City manager business.
Real quickly, Mayor, so you don't have to take a motion and a vote for extending the meeting. I just wanted to acknowledge the hard work and professionalism of my staff while I was out of town. So I'll never go on vacation again, apparently. When we had the fire in Villebois. Specifically wanted to thank Ms. Troja, my assistant city manager, for her leadership. Martin Montalvo, who was one of our first responders out there for Public Works, and Dan Carlson in the building department. Even though we weren't the first responders for that incident, we certainly provided support to the first responders. We had to do a lot of evaluation of the impacts to our infrastructure, making sure that we're coordinating with our insurance carriers so we can track all that. And then Ms. Troja's idea to convene a town hall for the Villebois community, I think, was a great idea. And the structure of that, I think, was appreciated by the folks that live out there. So I wanted to acknowledge all that and thank her publicly. I've thanked her privately, but I wanted to share that with her publicly. So thank you.
Certainly, I think council seconds that. Great job. Thank you all for all the extra work. And the entire staff was on top of things, you know, from the minute they became aware. And it was great to have that kind of coordination and see the cooperation and professionalism that was exhibited. So thank you all to staff for that. Any legal?
I think I gave you quite a bit of legal business already, so.
She gave you the business earlier.
Yeah. All right, council, anything further? If not, I will declare us adjourned at 9:53. Thank you very much.